Awesome. Cool. So I am going to go through just a couple like basic intro things and just talk at you guys for a second. But if something does pop up, definitely write it down. We're going to have a bunch of time at the end for questions, which is kind of what I want most of this to be anyways. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm kind of gonna watch for people if they pop in. But I'm super excited you guys are here. Thank you for showing up, by the way. I know this is probably not exciting and not everything you want to do on a Wednesday night. But it's awesome that you guys have an interest in kind of starting to learn some of these things. And like I said, there's familiar faces on here. So some of you are already being coached by me, which is awesome that you're on here because you're going to get everything that you need to kind of start this process in your program. So we'll kind of just go through an intro, why we're here. I'm going to break down what macros are and like what they do. And then we'll just go over all of my advice and tips and tricks for tracking and honestly just best practices because there's a lot of junk out there on social media about how to eat and what to eat. And it can get really confusing. So I'm just going to kind of break down how I do it and how I have my clients do it. And hopefully that's helpful for you guys. And then, like I said, we'll have a bunch of time at the end for questions and just kind of live chat, like just pick my brain about stuff, hot topics, all the things. So for those of you who don't know me or don't already work with me, I'm Courtney and I own Bryant Built Fitness with my husband. We were both in-person trainers full-time up in Michigan, and then we decided to move down to Georgia last year so that my husband could go to chiropractic school. So we transitioned pretty much all of our in-person clients to online. And it's been awesome ever since. I mean, it's such a blessing, but we just do it all virtually now. So it's really, really awesome. And we're, like I said, we're so blessed. We officially started Bryant Built about a year and a half ago. So it's been awesome ever since. So really just in terms of my story and how I came into this space and specifically because what we're going to talk about today is macros, how I started with macros. Basically my senior year of college, I was my heaviest and I have eaten clean my whole life. And so something that I want to touch on today with like just all of the details around macros is you can be eating so clean and healthy and organic at the end of the day, if you're not eating the right amount of calories and if your macros are not balanced, you just aren't going to necessarily look how you want to look or get to your goals. And so I hired TJ actually as a coach before we ever even started dating. And he got super real with me with my food, basically. I thought I was so healthy. Like since first grade, my family has been ultra crunchy, super organic, like no food dyes in the house. And I thought that that was like the key to everything. But as TJ taught me, your body does not care if it's organic granola if you're eating 1,000 calories worth, right? So that was very eye-opening to me. Again, I was a senior in college. I was young. I was seemingly healthy, could not lose weight to save my life, kept having to buy bigger clothes, like just not a great situation. Once I started tracking my food, it was mind blowing how much I was actually eating, like the bites and the snacks and just everything was starting to add up. And it brought me a lot of clarity around what I needed to fuel my body and what I needed to sacrifice as well, right? Because at the end of the day, like when we have goals, there are going to be certain things where we can't have our cake and eat it too all the time. So macros were just huge in my transformation. This transformation picture that you see was over 5 years. And so since then, I've been able to use macros for both directions. We compete in powerlifting, so there are seasons where, believe it or not, I intentionally put weight on because I want to put muscle on, right? And so it's done a lot for me, but not even just the physique. Like I struggled with bad periods when I was younger. My hormones were all out of whack, blood sugar issues, and like coming into macro tracking fixed all of that. Like within 6 months of working with TJ at the beginning, my periods were regular. I was totally under control with all of that. And like it was such a game changer for me. So it does have a lot of benefits aside from just the body composition stuff as well. But it's going to help kind of give you a sense of control of again, just fueling your body, figuring out what it needs. And that's kind of how all of this came to be. Everyone has a different strategy. And like, if you have worked with me before, you know that sometimes we do meal plans instead of macros. I like to think macros are just the foolproof way to get to your goal. But it takes some learning and you definitely have to ease into it. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. So what are macros? Macros are the bigger components that we need to fuel our body, right? And there's three of them. There's protein, carbs, and fats. They all play an essential role in just our system health, our organs, our hormones, all the good things. Now, you'll hear people talk about micronutrients as well because people want to focus on both. And really, the main difference is, macronutrients are those bigger components that I just mentioned. Micronutrients are the smaller nutrients like vitamins, minerals, all those little nuances that we need to be healthy and to function, but they're only really about like 5% of our diet compared to like 95% is protein, fat, and carbs. So the way to think of the relationship of all of these things is calories are going to determine your body weight. If you eat more calories, you're probably going to weigh more. If you eat less calories, you're probably going to weigh less. Macronutrients, so what we're talking about today, macros, are going to determine your body composition. So this is where we get into how much protein do I need to eat? Can I play around with fat and carbs depending on how lean I want to be or what I need to fuel my hormones? Micronutrients are going to determine how you feel. So energy, sex drive, things like that. Again, they both go hand in hand and we need both for sure. Macros are the things that we're going to track though, and we have a lot of control over. Because when it comes to micronutrients, we can focus on certain foods to get vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, or we can supplement those things, obviously, if we're not getting it through our diet. But that's kind of where that comes into play. So the breakdown of your main macros is really important to learn and kind of memorize. These are three things that you're going to memorize and just have on repeat when you start to plan your meals, because it's going to help you with reading labels and putting your meals together. So 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. 1 gram of carbs is also 4 calories. Now, fat is like super rude and unfair. 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. So you can see how fat is the heavier hitter when it comes to adding up your calories for the day. And that's why you see, we always say, hey, we want you to eat your body weight or your goal body weight in protein. Carbs, super easy to manipulate depending on your goals, but fat is always going to stay relatively moderate. We need enough to fuel our hormones, but not in excess necessarily, unless you're doing something like keto or something like that. So these three things are really great to memorize. Jot them down. You'll have this presentation, so you'll have it, but it's something to really just keep in your head, because when you start to piece your meals together, you'll start kind of processing, oh yeah, okay, I know that this is 5 grams of protein. I can add that up and understand what part of my calories are coming from the protein. So when it comes to actually tracking, first and foremost, you guys have to find an app that makes sense to you. I personally hate MyFitnessPal. Hate it. It's super complex and they try to be everything for you. And it just isn't it, in my opinion. There's a lot of logging and syncing and it has you track your calories burned, which honestly, your watch is not accurate. It's great. It's consistent data and I'm here for it. But the problem I have with MyFitnessPal is they will tell you, hey, log your workout. And you'll say, okay, I did 45 minutes of hot yoga this morning and I burned 1,000 calories. Probably not, but whatever. Let's just say that. It now wants you to add calories back into your diet, which defeats the whole purpose. If you have a goal to lean out, you want to lose some fluff, see some muscle, or you just want to lose weight, period, you have to be in a caloric deficit, meaning you have to eat less calories than you burn. That is a hard concept for people because when they see that logging and they start getting obsessed with the data, MyFitnessPal wants to tell you, hey, you burned this many calories, you can actually add them back in. That literally defeats the whole purpose, right? So I don't love MyFitnessPal. However, it does sync with our coaching app. And so a lot of my clients use it. As long as whatever app you're using is just for logging. Don't worry about all the other nonsense on there. Just use it to track your food as if you would old school, like write it down on a piece of paper, right? That's all you need it for. I love Mike's Macros. It's super simple. Its database is a little bit smaller than like a big MyFitnessPal, so sometimes you have to put things in manually, but to me it's worth it because the user, like the initial dashboard is just super simple and it just shows you your numbers and like it's clean and I love it. But you have to use what makes sense to you. So play around with different ones and see what feels right. Second tip is plan the night before. There is nothing worse than scrambling throughout the day and trying to figure out like what's going to work for your plan. So if the night before you can literally just take 2 minutes and think about, okay, what do I have prepped in the house? What do I have access to tomorrow? What is my schedule tomorrow, right? Like, what does it make sense for me to eat throughout the day? All you have to do is put that puzzle together the night before, and then the next day, you just have to follow it. So it's much simpler to do it that way and have a plan. With that, it's also easier to eat the same thing for as many days as you can. And I know, like, that is not sexy. That's not the fun answer. But you have to track less. And so I'm here to make things easier for sure. Like, I don't want to create more work for myself by having to track a million different days worth of plans. I just try to plan my week out and say, pretty much every day this week, here's what I'm having, even if there's a slight variation, that's fine. And then also with that, stick to single ingredients and simple recipes. So yes, you will get to a spot where you have really fun recipes and there's 25 ingredients and you learn to put all 25 ingredients in your log and you portion it out and you get the macros per serving and it's a whole thing. Like it takes time and I'm not against it. But when you are first starting out, it's such an obstacle. It's just going to make so much work for yourself. You're going to hate tracking. I'm sure people have run into that before where it's like, this is just literally way too complicated. So if you can just say, hey, I'm going to pick my protein, pick my carb, and pick my fat, put it together and season it into a meal, that's the best way to start. And then as you get more comfortable and you feel like tackling a bigger recipe, great, more power to you. So kind of going off of that, as you start looking at your macros, don't go into a food tracking app and be like, okay, I'm going to have this perfect equation and I'm going to start like just nailing protein, fat, and carbs and it's going to be amazing. Literally just start with protein. Track everything, like log everything that you consume. Only pay attention to your protein to start. If you know, general rule of thumb is we want to eat our body weight in protein, in grams of protein, or our goal body weight in protein, then start there, right? Put that number in and hit that goal for a week or two. When it gets a little more second nature, then start adding in the fat because I like to do fat next because it's going to teach you the different types of protein. There's very lean protein out there and there's very fatty protein, and they both are great for different reasons. But as you start to realize how many calories you need, it's going to start shaping which proteins you choose based on how many calories you have to work with. That might take you another couple weeks. From there, then you can add the carbs in and start playing around with that. The carbs, I would say for my clients, that's what we shift the most, right? That's the most adaptable because carbs are energy. It's a fuel source and it's really easy for us to kind of go up and down based on what you're trying to do in that season. But by the end of it, step 3 is you're tracking all 3 macros and then you find that balanced equation. But don't start off thinking that you're going to be like perfect with all 3 and make it work somehow. Just start paying attention to protein, then start learning the different fat sources, and then let it all come together. So planning meals is it's very precise, and there's pros and cons to it for sure. The first thing you need to ask yourself when you go to plan out, okay, like how many grams of carbs should I have per meal? You need to ask yourself, how many times a day do you eat? Most people, it's 3. Most people have like their 3 balanced meals, maybe a little snack. I eat 4 times a day plus a snack. Everyone's different. So again, look at your schedule, see what makes sense. Based on how many times a day you eat, you're going to take all your macro goals and you're just going to divide out that many meals. That means you're having perfectly balanced meals, right? So just an example that I did here for me, I eat 4 times a day. My macros are 140 grams of protein, 160 grams of carbs, and 60 grams of fat. I literally just had to divide all those by 4, and now I know what each meal needs to look like. I need 35 grams of protein in every meal, 40 grams of carbs, and 50 grams of fat. Now, the caveat I will say here is I like having a snack or I like having a little sweet treat. So I will basically take those down by a couple grams. So that way I have some left over in the bank, right? Like you want to think about your daily calories as like your budget. That's what I always refer to it as. So if I want to save up some of those for a little snack or something, I'll do that. I'll say, hey, okay, instead of 35 grams of protein per meal, I'm going to go down to 30 grams because then I know if I take that away from all four meals, I'll have 20 grams of protein left over to make like my Greek yogurt parfait or whatever. Same thing with carbs. Maybe I take 10 grams from each meal. Well, now I have 40 grams to work with. I can put some fruit in there, chocolate chips, whatever. And then same thing with fat, maybe just a couple grams from each meal. That way I have room for that snack. It's flexible, but you do want to prioritize the balanced meals first. So don't intentionally say, okay, well, I eat 3 meals a day, but I want a really big snack, so I'm gonna divide it between four. I mean, that's a slippery slope just because you're gonna start eating weird things, and we'll kind of get into that too. The thing with macros is like, just because you can make it fit doesn't mean you should. I always tell this story. A couple years ago, I did an experiment where I ate super lean throughout the day, like egg whites, lean ground turkey, chicken breast, like nothing with them, like no carbs with them, so that at night I could have a whole pint of ice cream. And I did it for 2 weeks. And it was amazing. Like it was so fun. I thought I was so cool. I was just like, let's just see what happens. And I'll tell you what, I made progress. I lost weight. My calories were where they needed to be. But I felt absolutely horrible. My skin was just like trash. It was, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but just to kind of prove the point of like, you need to figure out your calories. And when your calories are set, that's awesome. Like that's the answer. But like, I also care about gut health. So we're not gonna do what I did a couple years ago. But definitely focus on just the super balanced meals, find how many times a day it works for you and go from there. So, what I see, I would say most commonly, people run into issues when they eyeball their portions. It just is what it is. If you've been doing this for years, yeah, you will absolutely get to a spot where you just know what 6 ounces of chicken looks like. Like I do for sure. But for my people that are just getting started, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I don't trust you. Like, at least give me a measuring cup, right? Measuring spoons and cups are not as accurate by any means. And in my opinion, if you're going to do this, do it the right way and like just use your food scale. But I get it. Like, not everyone wants to do that. It's an extra step. We just got like a stainless steel one that like looks decent and we keep it on our counter. I know people don't want crap on their counter, but if it's there, you're going to use it as opposed to in a cupboard and it's just tucked away and you forget about it. So, like I said, if you're going to do it right and just weigh stuff out. If you eyeball things, there's just a chance that it's not going to be accurate and you're going to be scratching your head like, man, I thought my macros were perfect and it's not working. Another thing I see is either forgetting or neglecting to track a handful here, a bite here. These things add up. We know this for all my moms that, finish up their kids' stuff so that nothing gets wasted. I get it. I'm totally here for that, but at least just track it. Again, focus on the balanced meals, but if it happens, it happens. You need to have awareness of it. You need to just be fully honest when you track because those calories aren't invisible, unfortunately. And then the biggest thing really, and I touched on this earlier, but just trying to scramble through your day and figure out like, okay, I had breakfast based on what I felt like having. And then lunch, I ran into a snag because they had this thing in the break room. And so I had that, or I went out to lunch. And now for dinner, I'm left with 45 grams of protein, but I don't have any fat or carbs to work with. So now I have to eat a bunch of egg whites for dinner. Okay, you're either not going to do that and you're going to have something naughty and go way over calories, or you're going to do it and you're going to go to bed starving and like just quite honestly pissed off. So try not to do that. That's why we do it the night before. So that way you have this beautiful puzzle for the next day. And then I will say, if it is put together and you're like, hey, this is the perfect plan, but you do run into something, it's so much easier to adapt when that whole plan is laid out. You can just pick something out, plug something else in, and it's so much easier to tweak it from there, if that makes sense. Because otherwise, it's chaos in the middle of the day, and it's just another thing to stress about. So definitely try your best to plan the night before. In terms of the most frequently asked questions that I get regarding macros that everyone's always asking, first one is alcohol. how and do I track? And the answer is yes, you absolutely do track if it's regular for you. If you're someone who drinks regularly, those calories count. You have to log them. It's kind of a separate macro in and of itself. So it has its own calories attached to it. If you put it in your food log, it will, calculate it for you. And I would say just be careful of this. I mean, I don't make any of my clients, you guys know this, I don't make any of my clients stop drinking. However, if it becomes this thing where now they're using a lot of their caloric budget towards alcohol, that means you're not using it towards good protein and healthy fats and clean carbs to where now you're not satiated. It's going to lead you to probably binge on worse things, and then end up over consuming. And then it's like, why are you doing macros in the first place, right? So be mindful of it, but track it so that you have the data. If it's once in a while, you're totally fine. If it's every single day, yeah, just add it in and just make sure you know how many calories really are coming from your drinks because sometimes they're really sneaky. If you are trying to stay in a deficit and you have a lot of social events and you do a lot of drinking or whatever it is, try to stick to the lower calorie stuff. Try not to use a lot of sugary mixers and beers and things like that. Second thing is raw versus cooked when it comes to protein. So I don't care, and it doesn't matter as long as you are consistent with it. Last time I checked, no one wants to weigh out all of the raw protein individually and then like cook those separate things. Like that's not a thing. I mean, we make vats of things in our house and there's only two of us. So I would say just like weigh it cooked because that's easier. But you have to know that in your food tracking app, most likely it's going to assume that you're talking about it raw. And what you can do for that is account for about 1 ounce of water weight. So, for example, if I log 6 ounces of chicken breast in my app, on my food scale with cooked chicken, I need to see 5 ounces. If I see 6 ounces on my scale and it's cooked, I need to log it as 7. So let me know if that kind of makes sense, or if you have questions about that when we open up the Q&A, I'm sure we'll chat through that. But 1 ounce of water weight is usually kind of rule of thumb. But again, I don't care if you want to weigh everything raw, that's totally fine. It's a hassle in my opinion. When it comes to eating out, it's not that you can't eat out, like it's not against the rules. It makes things tougher, obviously. If you go to a chain restaurant, a lot of them now have the calories listed on the menu, which is nice. They don't usually list out the macros, but at least they give you ballpark. Unfortunately, when you go out, it's really hard to find a meal under like 600 or 700 calories, which is kind of crazy to think about. Because for the people that are eating, 1,500 calories a day, 60, like that's a big chunk of your caloric budget for the day. Now it is what it is. There's ways to work around it. If you know that you're going out and you're going to enjoy something a little more decadent, then just eat leaner throughout the day, right? Like my ice cream example, every now and then, it's totally fine. You can do that to offset some of the damage. There's a good chance that you're still going to be over that day. We don't know the oils that they cook in. We don't know the exact portions. Best thing you can do if you are at a restaurant that doesn't show the calories, just try to find something in your app that's similar. So like if you get the lobster mac and cheese for my people in Lansing from Bodie's, that's not going to be in the app. It's like a local, like you're not going to see it in your app. But if you type in lobster mac and cheese, chances are it's going to bring up at least a general listing of that, and you can use that. And I ask that you be smart about the serving, because if it tells you that one serving of lobster mac and cheese is only 400 calories, that means a serving is like a bite, right? So crank that serving up and err on the side of higher calories. So that way, at least the mindset is like, okay, like this is clearly a lot more calories than it needs to be. I'm going to be lean the rest of the day and figure it out. Training versus rest days. This is a super hot topic when it comes to macro tracking because people want to know, should I eat different amounts on days that I work out versus days that I'm resting? It depends on who you are. If you are in the nicest way possible, like if you're just like an average Joe who like trains a handful of days a week and you're just kind of trying to be strong and feel good, it's probably not something that you need to worry about. Similarly, if you're someone that needs to lose 30, 40, 50, 60 pounds, not something you need to stress about right now. If you are a competitive athlete, if you are a frequent runner, if you train super, super hard, like my powerlifters, yeah, we can totally talk, carb cycling is what it's called typically. And if you're someone that's like already really close to your body composition that you want, if you're within, 5, maybe 10 pounds and like you're relatively lean, it's super beneficial because we're teaching the body to use those carbs immediately for the session. And we're, not using a lot of fat around the session because we don't want to slow things down. So you'll get to a level where like, yeah, at a certain point, having different macros on different days is beneficial. If you are just still in a phase where you're like trying to lose weight or just easing into this, it just makes things more complicated. So I wouldn't recommend stressing about it. I love it. It's a great tool. So if it's something that you're like genuinely just excited about and you want to do, run it by me. That's totally fine. But other than that, don't stress about it. So those are kind of the things that I usually get asked. I want to open it up to questions that you guys have, whether it's stuff that we just talked about, nutrition in general, fitness in general, or if you have any like hot topics that you see on social media that you're just like confused on, I would love for you to run them by me. And also, I'd love to hear just if you guys have experience like with macros in the past, with any type of diet trends, or just really anything. I would love to hear it. So if you have a question, I want you to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I want you to just go into the chat and just drop a question mark, and then I'm going to call on you, and well, yeah, or you can type it in there. That's totally fine too. If you have a question, drop a question mark. I'll call on you. You can unmute. So first question just in the chat right now is intermittent fasting. I am anti for the most part. Now, my mother-in-law who beat breast cancer, totally different story. So much research about the benefits of certain types of fasting when you've had cancer. Again, for the average person that's like, I'm just trying to be healthy and I want to feel good and I want my body composition to be great. I just don't think it's necessary. And if anything, for females that are relatively healthy, I personally think that it is not a bad, I don't want to say a bad idea. Like you can do it, you can totally do it. However, if you think of it this way, you want your metabolism to be sped up, right? Like we want to fire it up. Think about your metabolism as a furnace. We want to give it a reason to kick on frequently, okay? If you go hours and hours and hours without eating, it doesn't need to kick on. It doesn't need to speed up. It doesn't need to work. So for a lot of my ladies, the biggest change that I provide them is like, hey, you need to eat within an hour of waking up at the latest. And if you're not waking up hungry, even more so, you need to do that because that means your metabolism just isn't fired up. So intermittent fasting in general, I'm not a fan of. I don't typically recommend it. There are totally situations where it can be beneficial. But other than that, I say just eat your breakfast, eat balanced throughout the day, keep your blood sugar happy. That's another great thing that macros do is they will balance your blood sugar and you won't have spikes and crazy roller coasters throughout the day. Does that answer that question? Awesome. Scale. So food scale. We just have a, do you mean food scale or like body weight scale?
Food scale.
So we just got a, I want to say it's just KitchenAid, and it was like 20 or 30 bucks on Amazon. It's black and stainless steel, like I said, like it looks nice on our counter. It doesn't look crappy. And it does the trick. Like at the end of the day, you can get any cheap food scale. It doesn't really matter if it starts acting up. Obviously, like grab a new one or replace the batteries. I don't know. We've had ours for so long. It's foolproof. So yeah, it's simple as long as it does ounces and grams, because like you want to track your meat and your protein typically in ounces, and it's easier to do grams for like your carbohydrates and things like that. I mean, I have people do both, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, honestly, just check out Amazon. We have one linked that I can send to you. That's just it looks nice. So other questions, other stories. Do we have history? Do we have experience with diets or food tracking in general? Have we gotten confused about macros? Have we ever even tried macros? Does anyone want to share their story if they have any general experience? You can feel free to just like unmute and start talking. No, none of us have ever thought about food ever before this moment. This is the first time we're ever thinking about food.
I'm like, let me leave the chaos of my children to unmute. Wait, stay there. I tried macros like a long, long, long time ago, before kids and everything, where I was like always eating out and it was so complicated. And I agree with what you were saying about my fitness pal. Like it was too much. And I'm like barely a tracker of anything in my life in the first place. So then it was like very overwhelming. But now that I eat pretty clean and like mostly at home, I'm like, okay, I feel like this is something I could start thinking about again and postpartum and all the things. But yeah.
Yeah, that makes total
I
sense.
never stuck to it, so I don't have like great experience with it, but it was like I sort of learned the numbers and I was trying to track it, but I was like, this is chaos. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I feel that. I think a lot of people probably have similar stories to that. I think the thing with macros, like, I mean, because you'll also see people post about intuitive eating, and like, I always talk crap about it because I'm like, no, like, if I am left to my own devices, I'm eating my cupcakes every single day. Like, that's my intuition, right? But in all seriousness, you can't get to a spot of smart intuitive eating until you've tracked, in my opinion. Because once you learn, like, now that I know what my maintenance calories are, and I know what it takes for me to cut, and I know what it takes for me to bulk, it's just programmed and I just know it. So yes, I can go days without officially tracking. I do it all the time. It's because I've been doing it for so long. I think for people just starting out, you have to give yourself the time, give yourself like a year. I mean, it took me when I was in college, it took me over a year to really get an actual grip on all of this stuff and get to a spot where I wasn't slipping back into old habits. And I wasn't just giving in and caving to everything. So it just takes time. But like if you track through different seasons, it just becomes such a good tool. And no, you don't have to track for forever. Like I don't track every single day. I don't track every single season. If I want to do something with my body composition, if I want to cut or I want to bulk, yes, I have to track because it also is a way of holding us accountable. If we have to see it physically, like typed into an app, or worse, like if I'm your coach and you have to show me that, like that is the accountability that we all need. And so it kind of serves that purpose too. Any questions about anything we went over today in terms of starting to track, or what would it look like for you, or anything of the sort? And like I said, feel free to just unmute or throw a question mark in the chat or just type your question in the chat. That's fine too.
Hello.
Hi, Shamia.
Hi. So I had to miss. I'm at work. But,
You're-
um, so I don't know if I think my question was always like, how is it, how is it calculated for me? Because I use my Fitness Pal. I mean, most of the time I'm fairly okay unless it gets busy with like tracking.
Yeah.
Because that's just based off of like, what's my activity level, what's my goal weight, things like that. But how otherwise, like, is it calculated specifically for me? Like,
Yeah.
how does that work?
Or just asked you, like, what is it based on, like lean muscle or BMI? So
Yeah.
I'll be totally honest. I would say, like, now that I've been doing this for a while, I know the range that most women are going to be in, right? And we also know the goal. Like, no one wants to have to eat 1,300 calories a day for the rest of their lives. That's also like that's not healthy. We don't want to do that. It's a lot of trial and error. So like I'll have a range that I know, okay, your average woman is probably going to be somewhere between, if we're talking like maintenance calories, 16 and 1,800. Maybe, I mean, if they've done some work and they have a real healthy metabolism, they're upwards of 2,000. If not, they might be as low as 1,300 to actually have to lose weight. Here's what I see though. People, and like Shamia, we've had this conversation a million times. How many times do we get to the end of the week where we're like, oh man, like my calories are here, but like I didn't lose weight or I gained a pound, right? And then we start thinking like, oh, well, I had a night where I went out to eat and I had fettuccine Alfredo, like 2 servings ever. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense, right? So chances are when people are like, oh, I eat 1,300 calories a day and I can't possibly lose weight. Okay, you probably aren't eating 1,300 calories a day every single day long enough for it to actually matter. What I see in
Hmm.
people's charts is 1,300 calories one day, and then 1,700 the next day, and then 1,200, and then 1,800. If you average that out throughout the week, you're landing at 16 or 1,800 calories, which is either your maintenance or surplus. So I find the range, we see what your body does, because that's the great thing about macros. Your body is going to tell you everything it needs to know. By the end of the week, or maybe 2 weeks, right? If we need longer to be consistent, you're either going to drop weight or body composition is going to change or it's going to go in the other direction. And then we know. So once you do it enough, we learn what your maintenance calories are, meaning you eat, let's say, 1650 every single day, like religiously for, let's say, 3 weeks. Let's say you're dialed in and it's like nothing out of the ordinary. You're 1650 to the T every single day, and your body weight doesn't do a single thing. That means you're at maintenance. Now, you can do work to bring your maintenance up. You're going to slowly increase those calories over a long period of time. Like, I mean, when I first met TJ, my maintenance was probably 1500. It was low. Like, we had to drop me for me to fix things because I had done so much damage, right? Like, I had done carnivore and then I tried vegan and then I was keto. Like, I tried everything and I was being real dumb about it. But because I did all that, I had to drop to 1100 calories a day for like 11 days. It was horrible. I was like, I can't, but I mean, I did it to myself. So I was like, I can't really complain, but it sucked. Then from there, we slowly built up. My maintenance is like 2200 now. It's amazing. I can eat so much food. And like, I'm a small human. Like, if you've never seen me in person, like I'm 5'1". I'm a small human. So you can do work to get your maintenance calories up, but basically you need to find that range first and then let your body tell us where do we need to go from here. So like for you, what we're doing right now when we're finding, okay, so we've been at this range, but we've had fluctuations. We need to average that out, see what your body weight responded to. That's going to tell us if we need to go up or down in calories.
Mm.
I'm sure there's a much more scientific way. Like, I'm sure other people are like, oh, yeah, it's calculated based on. Cool. I have a lot of success with people, and like, it's not that complicated. So that's how we do it. Your body's going to give us all the answers that we need.
Okay.
Okay, travel. Macros are the worst, but what do you suggest? Nicole, I don't know if you're with us currently or if you're just tuning in, but do you mean like when you're on trips and stuff and you're trying to track like while you're traveling for work?
Yeah, or living in a hotel for like a month for work. You know, those things.
Okay, honestly, convenience foods, you can get some killer macros out of convenience foods. However, I'm a hippie and I care about your gut health and I don't want you eating a bunch of synthetic crap. So if it's temporary like that, I'm going to say, yeah, find your best protein bar, protein shake, Greek yogurt, beef sticks. I mean, honestly, bodybuilders are going to get absolutely shredded on that type of diet because it's low fat and you can really manipulate the calories. But like for people like us and people that work with me, I'm like so anti that. But again, if it's a short period of time, it's temporary, like you're not going to die and you'll be able to tune in your macros still. But again, it's seriously just all about planning the night before. If you wake up in that hotel and you're like, cool, like the world is my oyster, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do today with these, it's going to get a little dicey because then you're going to be running around trying to find random stuff. So I would say try your best to plan as ahead as possible. And like see what your options are because we can get into things like Chipotle bowls where it's chicken and rice. And no, those are not low calorie by any means, but you can get a bunch of protein out of it. And it's fairly safe ingredients to where at least it's like whole foods for the most part. And it's not just a bunch of protein products. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. In regards to training and exercise, what do you say? Okay, so general range in mind for most women, but in regards to training and exercise, what would you suggest for consuming enough calories for maintenance when you have a hard time eating enough as it is? Okay, so Taylor, do you struggle to eat because of schedule, like you're busy, or is it like an appetite thing and like you feel like you can't get enough food in you physically?
I would say sometimes both, but mostly because of scheduling.
Okay. So that's going to go along the same lines as, well, honestly, for you, like obviously being in class and stuff, I know there's certain classes that you can't eat in. Here's the thing that I want people to understand when it comes to any of this, whether it's macros or meal plans or their exercise or whatever the goal is. When it comes down to whatever you're trying to prioritize, you have to just learn to like be so rooted in it that you're like, I'm that person. Like you've seen me on your campus. I carry a full cooler with me because I don't want to miss my meal times, right? it's not natural to people at first. It's really like you don't want to be that person. But like I'm already that person. Like I carry my weapon around with me. Like I don't care because I know that it's going to make me feel awesome. And the alternative, I just feel like crap. And so, especially for you, like Taylor's training for a full marathon in February. And so, like, you're going to come to a spot where that needs to be so, I mean, aside from school, obviously, but like so priority that you can be willing to do whatever you need even if it seems weird or like socially odd, but kind of similar to like Nicole with her travel, it also just comes down to like sometimes convenience is better than nothing. I'd rather you reach for a protein bar than go 6 hours without eating or be so low on protein that day that you're not recovering from your workouts or your runs. So I would say to consume enough. That's just kind of a mindset shift of like, okay, what do I need to do? And then, finding enough like what's relative is, do you track your body weight? Is that something that you keep an eye on? Because if you're not consuming enough, your body's going to tell you. You're going to feel horrible. You're going to be super sore all the time, especially if you're not eating enough protein. Your runs are going to start feeling really bad. And like you'll drop weight, right? If you're not dropping weight, and maybe you're like a little tired, but if you're not dropping weight and everything else is kind of normal, that means you're eating enough. But, could you always afford to have a few extra carbs around your run? Yes, of course. But this is all data. So it really just takes, at the end of the day, for any of you and any of your goals, it takes like, okay, well, do you care enough to like take a minute and just like record some stuff and like do some research on yourself, right? Like get to know yourself. What's your body weight doing? How are you feeling? Record your calories, see what happens. If you play around with that for like a week or two, you're going to have all the answers that you need. Again, it really is so simple, even though people have made it complicated. If I eat a certain amount of calories for a week and I drop 5 pounds and I'm like, ugh, I didn't want to do that. Like, that's not, I don't want that. Then, like, okay, my calories were severely low. I mean, it doesn't typically happen that drastically for people because your body knows, how to keep maintenance. But I would just start tracking some stuff and see what your body weight does because that will probably give you the answers that you need. And as you start training harder, yeah, you're probably going to want to increase calories a little bit more because you are going to be burning so many more. So you are the prime candidate for something similar to carb cycling, not in the sense of like pulling carbs from other parts of your day, but certainly adding extra carbs around your training and running. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely.
Other questions? No such thing as a dumb question. I might laugh a little bit, but like, you can ask anything. Any other kind of hot topics or anything at all? We feel ready? Are we all ready to tackle macros? Like tonight, are we all using our apps tonight? Okay, should you eat more around your cycle? Okay, this is so trendy. I'm so glad you asked this. Um, I feel very strongly that, again, if you're listening to your body, you don't need social media to tell you like how to eat around your cycle. Like I think that we have gotten really disconnected with ourselves in general, but I see a lot out there. It was trendy for a minute where people were like, train a certain way around different parts of your cycle, eat certain things. It's no different than when people say eat seasonally, right? Like, is there some benefit to it? Yeah, I'm sure. But like, are any of us being so strict about it that we're actually like, it's part of our identity? No. So, yes, there are things where it's like, eat certain fats around this part and that part. Try it and see if it genuinely feels so amazing and it's worth it, then like go for it. I have no problem with that. Is it just another thing for us to worry about? Yeah. And in terms of training, I think the most recent research is that it literally doesn't have an effect. Like people hung their hat on that for a long time, for a couple years. They were like, strength train during this, do yoga during this. And then it was like, yeah, actually doesn't matter. Now, scientifically, like are our hormones different to where like we could be more prone to injury, we could have just energy, a sense of energy, but that comes down to how we feel because I feel way different during ovulation than my period than other people. Like people say, a lot of people are like, man, like during ovulation I have so much energy. I'm exhausted. So like it's completely opposite of what social media tells me to do. I'm not going to listen to it just because social media tells me to do it. But I seriously recommend you try whatever you might be seeing because this is all trial and error, but everyone's different. And so everyone's cycles are different. I think that there totally could be some benefit to eating differently. I don't think necessarily more though. I think we are so prone to cravings around our cycle that I don't trust myself personally. Like I know that period is coming when I cannot get enough chocolate or whatever it is. And like again, macros are macros. I have a plan. You know, the things that you're seeing on a bunch of memes right now are like stick to the plan, not your feelings. Like, man, I need that preached at me every single month because the plan is there for a reason and like if you're craving something, you know, there's ways to work around it, but is it gonna like benefit you necessarily? I don't think so. But if I see any research to say that, I will totally let you know. That was a good question. Anything else on your guys' minds? Okay. I am going to share my screen one more time. Um, I have a guide that you guys can use. So it's super simple. It's kind of everything that we went over today, but it's got resources. So it's got like a list of proteins and a list of carbs and how to grocery shop, how to put your meals together. And then each week it sort of has assignments, kind of like we talked about, where it's like step one, track your protein, right? So if you want it, just pull out your phone, scan this QR code. It's a link to the Canva presentation. If you can't download it or can't print it or whatever you want to do with it for whatever reason, just let me know and I will email you like a PDF version of it and then you can have it there. Or if this doesn't work for some reason or if you're on your phone, whatever, let me know. You're going to get a copy of this whole meeting sent to you anyways. Everyone's getting it in their email. So you guys can just have it there as well. And that is kind of everything that I have for you guys. If you don't have any other, yes, Shamia, I will put your email in there. Yeah, if you guys don't have any other questions, no other hot topics, you are free to go. And seriously, like thanks again for hanging out. And if you guys have questions moving forward, obviously my clients, you know what the protocol is. You're all going to get that guide sent to you anyways. So like it's go time. But for anyone else, if you have other questions, feel free to DM me, text me, email me, whatever you kind of have. And we'll chat soon, okay?